The argument there, you would probably go buy me food anyway. That's what he's arguing. You would spend the money on food. I would rather you spend the money on this, if that is what you're gonna do. Also, he mentioned it. He can't provide it. I don't know what else you're gonna do. If George Washington can't get the job done, then nobody's gonna get the job. You got it done. You know what I mean? The problem we're having is the Frankenstein. People who think they're involved when they're not involved. I appreciate the effort, though. Again, let me get some more coffee. I'll take an intermission here to John J. Excuse me. Like, okay. That is awkward. It's like, fathers, I cannot defend myself against this. You made a I don't even know where to begin with you. I'm so fucking mad.
Oddball. Round one. Ball incoming. We have the ball. Ball dropped.
He heard
Enemy
me.
has the ball.
So, can I, like, can we get in here without me bitching? I don't, they're not welcome here. Again, my concern, again, the arc that you don't have permission to use.
Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped.
And it's the whole reason. It meant stop. It meant stop.
Enemy has
I know
the
you
ball.
like to see me get in here and bitch. But unfortunately, I'm not going to stop. I want action. I'm not involved with these people. At all.
Ball dropped. We have the ball.
I'm not interested.
Ball dropped. Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped. Enemy has the ball. Lost the lead. Ball dropped. We have the ball.
In my sights.
Halfway to victory.
Enemy there.
Oh, it most definitely is.
Ball dropped. Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped. dropped. We have the ball. Ball dropped. We have the ball. Ball dropped. We have the ball. Nearing victory. Drive. Ball out of bounds. Ball incoming. We have the ball. Ball dropped. He has the ball. Ball dropped. Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped. We have the ball. Round one. Round two. Ball incoming. Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped. We have the ball. Double kill. Killing spree. Ball dropped. Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped. Ball out of bounds. Ball incoming. Perfect. Enemy has the ball. Ball dropped. We have the ball. Ball dropped. We have the ball. Ball dropped.
To JJ. Philadelphia, November 1st, 5th, 1794.
Enemy has the ball.
My dear sir, on Tuesday last I returned from my tour to the westward. On Monday,
So we
Congress,
need them
by adjournment,
removed
are to
for a
meet, and on the day
reason.
following, Mr. Bayard, according to his present expectation, is to leave this city for London.
Fraud.
Thus, circumstance, having so little time between my return and the opening of the session to examine papers and to prepare my communications for the legislature, you will readily perceive that my present address to you must be hurried. At the same time, my friendship and regard for you would not let an opportunity so good as the one afforded by Mr. Bayard pass without some testimony of my remembrance of you, and an acknowledgment of the receipt of your private letters to me, dated the 23rd of June, 21st of July, and 5th and 11th on August. These comprehended all the letters I read from you since your arrival in England and to the present day. The monitor, that's a revenge play. They do that at revenge. That was a setup. I saw that coming before I took it down here. Out of spite.
Have the ball.
So the only computer I can stream with, technically I guess wouldn't be mine.
Nearing victory. Perfect.
As I say that, they pause. Like they freeze the window there. Yes, it's out of spite.
One shot. There you go.
It's with intent.
Dummies, one shot.
They knew that's what was gonna go on. They didn't have a monitor. They're coming up with excuses.
Target spotted.
Is basically what it is.
Enemy
They knew that I would upload everything on here, and they're basically trying to take it away because their mentality, they're delusional. You know what I mean? I can read them like a book, dude. They are thick in the head the way that they think.
Change.
The fact that they set it up that far deep. You have a mental problem. You sitting there pondering that hard. But anyways, I knew when I brought it down here that that's what was going to happen. So basically, I'm going to have to stream upstairs now. To John J. Private. You see? Go ahead. It's the only one that I can stream on, so. As far as, like, system goes. The other computer I bought, I can play the game that I want, but it will not stream the way I want it. But that's alright. I mean, I still stream it. Just
Excuse me.
it won't be quite the same the way that I want it, or often as I want it. That of the 5th of August dawns more favorably upon the success of your mission than any that had preceded it, and for the honor, dignity, and interest of this country, for your own reputation and glory, and for the peculiar pleasure and satisfaction I should derive from it, as well on private as on public considerations. No man more ardently wishes you complete success than I do. But, as you have observed in some of your letters, that it is hardly possible in the early stages of a negotiation to foresee all the results. I'm not negotiating, period. So much depending upon fortuitous circumstances and incidents which are not within our control. So, to deserve success by employing the means with which we are possessed, to the best advantage, and trusting the rest to all wise disposer, is all that an enlightened public and the virtuous and well-disposed part of the community can reasonably expect. Negative. Nor in which will they, I am sure, be disappointed. Oh yes. Against the malignancy of this discontented, the turbulent, and the vicious, no abilities, no exertions, nor the most unshaken integrity are any safeguard. No thanks, tool. I'm not interested. As far as depends upon the executive measures preparatory for the worst, while it hopes for the best, will be pursued, and I shall endeavor to keep things in statu quo until your negotiation assumes a more decisive form, which I hope will soon be the case, as there are many hot heads and impetuous spirits among us who with difficulty can be kept within bounds. This, however, ought not to precipitate your conduct. For, as it has been observed, there is a tide in human affairs that ought always to be watched, and because I believe all who are acquainted with you will readily concede that considerations both public and private combine to urge you to bring your mission to a close with as much celerity as the nature of it will admit. As you have been, and will continue to be, fully informed by the Secretary of State of all transactions of a public nature which relate to or may have an influence on the points of your mission, it would be unnecessary for me to touch upon any of them in this letter. Was it not for the presumption that in the insurrection in the western counties of this state has excited much speculation and a variety of opinions abroad, and will be represented differently according to the wishes of some, and the prejudices of others, who may exhibit it as an evidence of what has been predicted, that we are unable to govern ourselves? Under this view of the subject, I am happy in giving it to you as the general opinion that this event, having happened at the time it did, was fortunate, although it will be attended with considerable expense. That the self-created societies, have spread themselves over this country, have been laboring incessantly to sow the seeds of distrust, jealousy, and of course discontent, thereby hoping to effect some revolution in the government, is not unknown to you. That they have been the fomenters of the Western disturbances admits of no doubt in the mind of any one who will examine their conduct. But, fortunately, they have precipitated a crisis for which they were not prepared, and thereby have unfolded views which will, I trust, effectuate their annihilation sooner than it might otherwise have happened. At the same time that it had afforded an occasion for the people of this country to shew their abhorrence of the result, and their attachment to the Constitution and the laws. For I believe that 5 times the number of militia that was required would have come forward if it had been necessary in support of them. The spirit which blazed out on this occasion as soon as the object was fully understood and the lenient measures of the government were made known to the people deserved to be communicated. For there are instances of general officers going at the head of a single troop, and of light companies of field officers, when they come to the places of rendezvous, and found no command for them in that grade. Turning into the ranks and proceeding as private soldiers under their own captains, and of numbers possessing the first fortune in the country, standing in the ranks as private men, and marching day by day with their knapsacks and haversacks at their backs, sleeping on straw with a single blanket in a soldier's tent, during the frosty nights which we have had, by way of example to others, nay more, many young Quakers, not discouraged by the elders of the first family's characters and property, having turned into the ranks and are marching with the troops. These things have terrified the insurgents, who had no conception that such a spirit prevailed, but, while the thunder only rumbled at a distance, were boasting of their strength, and wishing for, and threatening the militia by turns, intimidating that the arms they should take from them would soon become a magazine in their hands. Their language is much changed indeed, but the principles want correction. I shall be more prolix in my speech to Congress on the commencement and progress of this insurrection than is usual in such an instrument, or than I should have been on any other occasion. But as numbers at home and abroad will hear of the insurrection, and will read the speech, that may know nothing of the documents to which it might refer, I conceived it would be better to encounter the charge of prolixity by giving a cursory detail of facts that would show the prominent features of the thing, than to let it go naked into the world, to be dressed up according to the fancy or the inclination of the readers or the policy of our enemies. I write nothing in answer to the letter of Mr. Wangenheim enclosed by you to me. Were I to enter into correspondencies of that sort, admitting there was no impropriety in the measure, I should be unable to attend to my ordinary duties. I have established it as a maxim neither to invite nor to discourage emigrants. My opinion is that they will come hither as fast as the true interest and policy of the United States will be benefited by foreign population. I believe many of these, as Mr. Wangenheim relates, have been, and I fear will continue to be, imposed upon by speculators in land and other things. But I know of no prevention but caution, nor any remedy except the laws. Nor is military or other employment so easily obtained as foreigners conceive, in a country where offices bear no proportion to the seekers of them. With sincere esteem, and C. P.S. November 5th. Your correspondent with New York, as I have no doubt too frequent and regular to render any account of Mrs. J. from my necessary. Yet, as I was told yesterday by Mr. King, that she and all your family were well, I chose to mention it. For want of a Senate, Congress cannot proceed to business. He's calling you out, I think is what it is. You guys went astray at some point, and that is not the mission of the United States as a whole, and it's actually contradictory and doing more harm than good, especially whenever you're putting blame on this when it's actually that.
Bomb taken.
Our basement. One hit.
It's very. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Carrier kill.
Oh, they are gonna fight it. I assure you. Over one man. I assure you, these dumbasses. This is the only generation, Mr. Washington. I assure you. Okay, get little girl.
Taken.
So New York or Missouri, wherever she may be, let's get her out of there. Not welcome at all. Come on, let's get them out. Let's go. Really?
Enemy team.
I cannot wait to see this shit. To the Secretary of the Treasury. Hey, can you please give him the money so we can move on here? Philadelphia, November 5th, 1794. Dear Sir, since my last to you, I received your several letters of the 25th, 26th, and 29th of last month, and am glad to hear that the troops continue to be in good health and spirits, notwithstanding the bad weather and the roads, and that further indications of submission were likely to be manifested by the insurgents. I have not received the route of either column of the army nor a copy of the order establishing them, issued on the day of my departure from Bedford. Upon inquiry, I find that it was copies only of papers that had been sent from the Secretary of State's office, the originals being adjudged necessary for the archives. For want of a quorum in the Senate, Congress have not yet proceeded on business, and it is questionable, it seems, whether it will make a house today. 5 members being wanting for this purpose yesterday afternoon. Bach, as I expected, has opened his batteries upon your motives for remaining with the army. As the papers, I presume, are sent to you, I shall not repeat them. Although there are some late arrivals, the gazettes have not as yet announced anything new. Mrs. Hamilton and your family were well yesterday. Mrs. Schuyler and son John and daughter are there, but talk of going away today or tomorrow. I am, etc. To Sir John Sinclair, Philadelphia, November 9th, 1794. Sir, by Mr. Bayard, a respectable young gentleman of this city, who will have the honor of presenting this letter to you, I take the liberty of putting into your hands a work which only made its appearance a few days ago. A view of the United States of America in a series of papers. I have not read it yet, and therefore shall say nothing for or against the merits of it. Further than that, the author is a man of intelligence and accuracy, and being the commissioner of our revenue, possessed the means of official information, which of course has enabled him to detail matters depending thereon with truth and precision. From Hamilton Papers in the Library of Congress. Talking about the federal papers. On November 17th, Hamilton wrote to Washington from Pittsburgh. The list of prisoners has been very considerably increased, probably to the amount of 150, but it is not yet so digested as to be forwarded. I think he pardoned them already. Governor Lee just informs me that he has received a letter from Marietta advising him of the apprehending of John Howcroft, the reputed Tom the Tinker, and one Wright, a notorious offender. Hamilton's letter is in the Washington papers. There's a lot going on there, I do remember this. If the performance should afford you any satisfaction or convey any information which was unknown to you before, it will give you pleasure to serve your etc. I'll be right back.
Carrier kill.
Blow you.
Bomb taken. Bomb taken.
No, one in the middle.
Where'd it go?
Bomb army.
He got it.
Carrier kill. Double kill. Bomb drop.
Oh my goodness. Another guy on it?
Taken. Bomb taken. Bomb army. Carrier kill. Bomb armed. Enemy team nearing victory. Objective incoming. Objective ready. Bomb taken. Carrier kill. Bomb taken. Bomb arming. Bomb taken. Carrier kill. Bomb dropped. Bomb taken. Bomb taken. Carrier kill. Bomb taken. Bomb arming. Bomb dropped.
Oh, and then he gets me.
Bomb
From across the map? On our own base, he gets me. Yeah, they already had 2 bombs? I didn't even realize. I'm gonna exit at that. Especially if it's taking this long. Then I guess I'll kill you. I'm not really asking. I don't know what to tell you. It's as simple as that. Get the fuck out. I didn't realize I had 2 though. I'm not arguing with you at all, motherfucker. That's not how we talk. Not how we do things. Get the fuck out. I will kill you. Oh, they had 2 there? I didn't even realize. I was wondering, like, how did they get that one? Doesn't make sense at all. I guess at the beginning.
King of the Hill.
Okay. To Arthur Young, Philadelphia, November 9th, 1794. Sir, your letter of the 2nd of June, with the 2nd edition of your travels, and 2 sets of the 19th, 20th, and 21st volumes of your annuals, 1 set of which I shall send to the Agricultural Society of the city, came to my hands a few days ago only. The letter alluded to therein as being sent by some farmers whom you had the goodness to recommend to me. Has not yet been received, nor had I before heard anything of such men. Of the information which I have had in my power to convey to you respecting the climate, soil, agriculture, and production of the Central State has in any degree answered the end of your inquiries or afforded you any satisfaction, the object I had in giving it is fully accomplished, and my present situation adds greater reluctance than heretofore to see or to know that any hastily written and indigested letters of mine should be handed with my name to them to the public. From not being so explicit as I ought to have been in my letter of, my intention respecting the Negroes which reside on my farm did not sufficiently appear to you. It was not my meaning, if it was so understood, to make it a condition that they should be annexed as an appendage thereto. I had something better in view for them than that. To accommodate, not to encumber the farmer, was the idea I meant to convey to you. That is, that he might or might not, as his inclination or interest should dictate, hire them, as he would do any other laborers, which is necessity would require him to employ. There you go. To acquire land in fee is, I am persuaded, among, if not the first, inducement to immigration to the United States, and therefore I never was sanguine in my expectation of obtaining tenants from England for my lands on the terms suggested in a former letter. I am satisfied, however, that if the middling and lower classes of your farmers were fully acquainted with the real difference in the taxes of the two countries, it would not be a secondary consideration. To illustrate this, I enclose you the publication of a very intelligent farmer from the country of Essex in England, a Mr. Lambert, who has lately established himself and family in this country, giving from his own actual experience. I take the liberty also of sending you a few of the United States of America in a series of papers by Tench Cox, the Commissioner of our Revenue. It is a new work just from the press, which I have not yet read, but as it is the production of an intelligent and accurate man, possessing official information in all matters of a fiscal nature, of the population, navigation, wealth, and resources of the country, you will find more than conjectural accounts and misrepresentation in it, although it may be deficient in things interesting or amusing to foreigners. I am much obliged by the books you have sent me, and thank you sincerely for the kind offer of rendering me any other services in your power. With great esteem, etc. To the Vice President. Saturday, November 15th, 1794. Dear Sir, I have not been able to give the papers herewith enclosed more than a hasty reading, returning them without delay, that you may offer the perusal of them to whomsoever you will think proper. The picture drawn of them of the Genovese is really interesting and affecting. The proposition of transplanting the members entire of the University of that place to America, with the requisition of means to establish the same, and to be accompanied by a considerable immigration, is important, requiring more consideration than under the circumstances of the moment I am on it. That a national university in this country is a thing to be desired, has always been my decided opinion, and the appropriation of ground and funds for it in the federal city have long been contemplated and talked of. But how far matured, or how far the transplanting of an entire seminary of foreigners who may not understand our language can be assimilated therein is more than I am prepared to give an opinion upon, or indeed how far funds in either case are attainable. My opinion with respect to immigration is that except of useful mechanics in some particular descriptions of men or professions, there is no need of encouragement. While the policy of or advantage of is taking place in the body, I mean the settling of them in a body, may be such question, for by so doing, they retain the language, habits, and principles, good or bad, which they bring with them. Whereas by an intermixture with our people, they or their descendants get assimilated to our customs, measures, and laws, in a word, soon become one people. I shall, at any leisure hour, after the session is fairly opened, have pleasure in a full and free conversation with you on this subject, being with much esteem. And see, it's one of those things where it's like, his name's on the ground, it's not a joke, by no means is it a hoax. So you basically have these people, and I would assume that the people who are claiming that it's a hoax are the ones with the ark. You know, you speak English. You can see the timeline there. So that's like one of those things where it's like immediate, you should probably do what he says. And he's very reasonable. I don't know what else to tell you there. Have an open conversation about this. Again, that's where like the wrong person obtained this ark, and now is like going around strong-arming people. It's as simple as a written word in the law. Things that I'm entitled to that are being ignored, like blatantly ignored, and on top of that, like you're chasing them. That's the thing that gets me. Like you're blatantly ignoring what's right in your face, and then turning around and strong-arming the person who owns you. It doesn't make much sense. I've done it the proper way. I get in your face, I promise you it's not going to end well. I'm not a happy person with you. Or you're just going to play stupid, and everybody's going to walk away like dumbfounded. You know what I mean? Even though that's not the case. So I don't really know what you have going on over there.
Team took the hill.
It makes me sad.
Enemy
I think you're
team took
delusional.
the hill.
Your way of thinking. Again, for me personally, it should be as easy. I mean, obviously not today. Yeah, on a Sunday, it should be easy as me going in there and saying, "Hey, I need this building today. I need this much money to do this. I need to open shop." It should be that easy for me.
Enemy about
You made it
to
impossible.
soar.
Not impossible, like random sheer luck. I'm not hearing it at all.
Enemy team scored. Hill incoming.
It's unfortunate that I have to sit there and wait. I have to rely on you.
Enemy team took the hill.
The way they're wanting to do it, no, dude. I don't even know where to begin with your way of thinking.
Hill control.
It's in bad taste. Like it's like a cult. A cult way of thinking. I can't put my words to it. Like the take it to heart. This is the way I want it done. Like stubbornness. For no reason at all. Especially like, doesn't make. Should I turn the camera around and show you? You know what I mean? It should be a shoe-in. It shouldn't even be a question. And it is a question. That doesn't make sense. To William Pierce, Philadelphia, November 16th, 1794. Mr. Pierce, by the post of yesterday, I received your letter of the 11th, institute with the reports of the 3 preceding weeks, except those of the carpenters. I did not write to you last week, not having heard from you by the 2 posts before. I am glad to hear that your potatoes and corn are likely to turn out well, and that the wheat now in the ground looks promising. The last crop of that article, according to your account, is miserable indeed, and the buckwheat not a great deal better. Of the latter and of the potatoes, save enough for seed for next year. It is miserable for a farmer to be obliged to buy his seeds. To exchange seeds may in some cases be useful, but to buy them after the first year is disreputable. Let me know from time to time what prices wheat and flour are at in Alexandria. 12.6 for the first PR bushel, and 3 pounds a barrel for the latter are the value of them in this city at present. The letter from Sally Green to me is enclosed. I have no doubt of her being in very distressed circumstances, and am at a loss as to the best mode of affording her relief. That of going to Alexandria is, I fear, a bad plan, although if she was able and in earnest to take in washing and sewing, it would be the best stand for them. What she means by keeping a shop, I am at a loss to understand. It is to be feared her shop,
Capture
Wednesday,
the flag.
be no more than a receptacle for stolen produce by the Negroes. Examine into this matter, and you may aid her in anything that appears to you feasible, to the amount of 20 pounds in the purchase of things or on credit, but not by an advance in money, lest it should be fooled away for unessential things which she can do without, instead of being applied to her real wants, or in the purchase of things as may be turned to advantage. If she goes to town, you may give her a boatload of wood, a little flour, and some meat at killing time, besides what is unusually allowed her father. If she goes there, her eldest son may derive some benefit from the charity school which is established there at my expense. Definitely not charity. I assure you it's not charity. And that button ain't gonna get you out of it, I assure you. You wanna bet me on it? It is not. If she has not yet decided on her plan, she ought to do it immediately, or at any rate, James Donaldson ought to go into the house she is in. I am sorry he did not do it at first, that he might have been kept as separate and as distinct as possible from the Negroes, who want no encouragement to mix with, and become too familiar, for no good purposes, with these kind of people. I have often said, and I again repeat, that if you can get such a man as would in all points be a fit superintendent of my carpenters, I would have you employ him. But this fitness ought to be ascertained, otherwise either from a difference of wages or some other cause you might discontent the man you have without deriving equivalent advantages.
Flag
I do
returned.
not know if you should have been disappointed by Pine, whether the loss will be great, for the more I saw of him, the less I liked him, as he appeared to be more of a talker than an actor. I am glad to hear you are proceeding in your fall plowing. I hope it will be pushed vigorously at all times, that the ground is in good state for this work. And I am not less pleased to find you are cutting up the fallen timber. I earnestly recommend a countenance of this plan, either for rails, where it will make them, or for firewood. Whenever you leisure will admit, as the waste which there heretofore has been committed all over my hand is shameful. What number of good hogs have you put up, or will be able to put up this fall for porkers? The bacon now on hand, with a small reservation, may be disposed of, as it is not within the bounds of probability that myself or any part of my family can be at Mount Vernon before the next supply will be fit for use. And if the culled sheep and other useful stock cannot be sold, they had better, rather than run the hazard of losing them, be salted for the next harvest. Mr. Hawkins, one of the senators from North Carolina, on his way to this place, left at Mr. Lund Washington's in order to be sent to Mount Vernon sundry cuttings of valuable grapevines for me. The letter herewith enclosed gives an account of them and his manner of treating them. Let the gardener see it, and after taking such accounts of them are necessary, return the letter to me again. You proposed, when I was last at home, to cultivate in corn, rye, or something else, with a view of cleansing the ground, that part of the pasture at the mansion house, which lies above the hill, adjoining the wood, north, and no wheat, the clover, lot by the quarter. To this I consented, but did not direct it, nor do I now direct it, leaving it to yourself to act from circumstances. I shall require, however, if it is done, that a great many of the trees be left standing, without regarding the injury the crop may sustain by it, for that is only a secondary object. These may be a single or partly single, and in clumps or all clumps, according as far as the present standing and appearance, it should be thought they would answer best. If clumps should be prepared, let them be large ones, where they can be so, not less than 50 to 100 feet in diameter. Let the transplanted clumps be made good this fall and ensuing spring.
Capture
Indian
the
Hills,
flag.
the Wounded Knee. I'll bring to your view what I was about to do myself the fall before last, with the grounds adjoining to what has been just mentioned, that if it should strike you favorably, you may carry it in effect, but from which I was diverted by the desire of employing the muddy hole gang of hands in the swamps at D Run.
Damn, bro.
It was with the gain to clear
Show
all the
me-
land
catch me
which
off guard.
lies between the Alexandria Road and the pasture fence, from the white gates up to the little old field for corn. For the plantation muddy hole, instead of tending the worn out fields at that place, to leave the trees standing either in clumps or singly, as they are in the adjoining part, through which the road passes. Wind blocks. You will readily perceive that I had a threefold object in this plan. The first was to open the ground like the adjoining for an ornament and the enlargement of the pasture. The second day was to avoid tending the worn out and bullied fields at Muddy Hole, and the third day to have the stock of wood for firing with as little carting as possible. I merely mention the thing at this time that you may think of it, and see how far it can be made part of the other object within the pasture fence, and that if it should be thought well of, the field which otherwise would come to into corn at Muddy Hole may lie over. I shall not enlarge, as it is enough to suggest the matter for consideration, and to see how it would comport with or militate against the general plan of business. I am sorry to hear that your people still continue sickly.
That guy was there the
plain to
entire
chew,
time.
in many places mortal. I wish you well, and etc. He's burning the field. Fertilization. And then he's putting up wind blocks, the trees. I don't know where Muddy Hole is. I guess the Hartless Ford. I don't know the entire area there. I don't go there, you know what I mean? Doge, the printed text in M.B. Conway's George Washington and Mount Vernon Long Island Historical Society from March 24 has at this point the following part of at least the ground through which the road to White Gates Pass that has been cleared would also require cultivation to destroy the sprouts, growth, and CA, and to accommodate is better for pasture thereafter. Sixth Annual Address to Congress, United States, November 19, 1794. Fellow citizens of the Senate and of the House of Representatives, when we call to mind the gracious indulgence of heaven by which the American people become a nation, when we survey the general prosperity of our country and look forward to the riches, power, and happiness to which it seems destined, with the deepest regret do I announce to you that during your recess some of the citizens of the United States have been found capable of an insurrection. It is due, however, to the character of our government and to its stability, which cannot be shaken by the enemies of order, freely to unfold the course of this event. During the session of the year 1790, it was expedient to exercise the legislative power granted by the Constitution of the United States to lay and collect excises. In a majority of the states, scarcely an objection was heard to this mode of taxation. In some, indeed, alarms were at first conceived until they were banished by reason and patriotism. In the 4 western counties of Pennsylvania, a prejudice fostered and embittered by the artifice of men who labored for an ascendancy over the will of others, by the guidance of their passions, produced symptoms of riot and violence. It is well known that Congress did not hesitate to examine the complaints which were presented and to relieve them as far as justice dictated or general convenience would permit. But the impression which this moderation made on the discontented did not correspond with what is deserved. The arts of delusion were no longer confined to the efforts of designing individuals. The very forbearance to press prosecution was misinterpreted into a fear of urging the execution of the laws, and associations of men began to denounce threats against the officers employed, from a belief that by a more formal concert their operation might be defeated. Certain self-created societies assumed the tone of condemnation. Hence, while the greater part of Pennsylvania itself were conforming themselves to the acts of excise, a few counties were resolved to frustrate them. It was now perceived that every expectation from the tenderness which had been hitherto pursued was unavailing, and that further delay could only create an opinion of impotency or irresolution in the government. Legal process was therefore delivered to the marshal against the rioters and delinquent distillers. No sooner was he understood to be engaged in this duty than the vengeance of armed men was aimed at his person and the person and property of the inspector of the revenue. They fired upon the marshal, arrested him, and detained him for some time as a prisoner. He was obliged, by the jeopardy of his life, to renounce the service of other process on the west side of the Allegheny Mountain, and a deputation was afterwards sent to him in demand a surrender of that which he had served. A numerous body repeatedly attacked the house of the inspector, seized his papers of office, and finally destroyed by fire his buildings and whatsoever they contained. Both of these officers, from a just regard to their safety, fled to the seat of government, it being avowed that the motives to such outrages were to compel the resignation of the inspector, to withstand by force of arms the authority of the United States, and thereby to extort a repeal of the laws of excise and an alteration in the conduct of government. Upon the testimony of these facts, an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States notified to me that in the counties of Washington and Allegheny in Pennsylvania, laws of the United States were opposed, and the execution thereof obstructed by combinations too powerful to be suppressed by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. or by the powers vested in the marshal of that district. On this call, momentous in the extreme, I sought and weighed what might best subdue the crisis. On the one hand, the judiciary was pronounced to be stripped of its capacity to enforce the laws. Crimes, which reached the very existence of social order, were perpetrated without control. The friends of government were insulted, abused, and overawed into silence, or an apparent acquiescence, and the yield to the treasonable fury of so small a portion of the United States would be to violate the fundamental principle of our Constitution, which enjoins that the will of the majority shall prevail. On the other, to array citizen against citizen, to publish the dishonor of such excesses, to encounter the expense and other embarrassments of so distant an expedition were steps too delicate, too closely interwoven with many affecting considerations to be lightly adopted. I postponed, therefore, the summoning of the militia immediately into the field. But I require them to be held in readiness, that if my anxious endeavors to reclaim the deluded and to convince the malignant of their danger should be fruitless, military force might be prepared to act before the season should be too far advanced. My proclamation of the 7th of August last was accordingly issued and accompanied by the appointment of commissioners, who were charged to repair to the scene of insurrection. They were authorized to confer with any bodies of men or individuals. They were instructed to be candid and explicit in stating the sensations which had been excited in the executive and his earnest wish to avoid a resort to coercion. To represent, however, that without submission coercion must be the resort, but to invite them at the same time to return to the demeanor of faithful citizens by such accommodations as lay within the sphere of the executive power. Pardon, too, was tendered to them by the government of the United States, and that of Pennsylvania upon no other condition than a satisfactory assurance of obedience to the laws. Although the report of the commissioners marked their firmness and abilities, and must unite all virtuous men by shewing that the means of conciliation and have been exhausted, all of those who had committed or abetted the tumults did not subscribe the mild form which were proposed as the atonement, and the indications of a peaceable temper were neither sufficiently general nor conclusive to recommend or warrant a further suspension of the march of the militia. Thus, the painful alternative could not be discarded. I ordered the militia to march after once more admonishing the insurgents in my proclamation of the 25th of September last.
Enemies over there.
It was a task too difficult to ascertain with precision, the lowest degree of force competent to the quelling of the insurrection. From respect, indeed, to economy and the ease of my fellow citizens belonging to the militia, it would have gratified me to accomplish such an estimate. My very reluctance to ascribe too much importance to the opposition, had its extent been accurately seen, would have been a decided inducement to the smallest efficient numbers. In the uncertainty, therefore, I put in motion 15,000 men as being an army which, according to all human calculation, would be prompt and adequate in every view, and might perhaps be rendered resistance desperate, prevent the effusion of blood. Quotas had been assigned to the states of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. The governor of Pennsylvania having declared on this occasion an opinion which justified a requisition to the other states. As commander-in-chief of the militia, when called into the actual service of the United States, I have visited the places of general rendezvous to obtain more exact information and to direct a plan for ulterior movements. Had there been room for persuasion that the laws were secure from obstruction, that the civil magistrate was able to bring to justice such of the most capable as have not embraced the proffered terms of amnesty, and may be deemed fit objects of example, that the friends to peace and good government were not in need of that aid and countenance, which they ought always to receive, and I trust ever will receive, against the vicious and turbulent. I should have caught with avidity the opportunity of restoring the militia to their families and home, but succeeding intelligence has tended to manifest the necessity of what has been done, it being now confessed by those who are not inclined to exaggerate the ill conduct of the insurgents, that their malevolence was not pointed merely to a particular law. Donald, I believe he's talking about Yemen. You need Congress in order to approve that strike. And I have George here that's basically telling the troops to stand down. But not that a spirit, inimical to all order, has actuated many of the offenders. If the state of things had afforded reason for the continuance of my presence with the army, it would not have been withholden. But every appearance assuring such an issue as will redound to the reputation and strength of the United States, I have judged it most proper to resume my duties at the seat of government, leaving the chief command with the governor of Virginia. Still, however, as it is probable that in commotion like the present, whatsoever may be the pretense, the purposes of mischief and revenge may not be laid aside. The stationing of a small force for a certain period in the 4 western counties of Pennsylvania will be indispensable. Whether we contemplate the situation of those who are connected with the execution of the laws, or of others who may have exposed themselves by an honorable attachment to them. 30 days from the commandment of this session 30 days from the commencement of this session, being the legal limitation of the employment of the militia, Congress cannot be too early occupied with this subject. Among the discussions which may arise from this aspect of our affairs, and from the documents which will be submitted to Congress, it will not escape their observation that not only the Inspector of the Revenue, but other officers of the United States and Pennsylvania have, from their fidelity in the discharge of their functions, sustained material injuries to their property. The obligation and policy of indemnifying them are strong and obvious, and may also merit attention whether policy will not enlarge this provision to the retribution of other citizens who, though not under the ticks of office, may have suffered damage by their generous exertions for upholding the Constitution and the laws. The amount, even if all the injured were included, would not be great, and on future emergencies the government would be amply repaid by the influence of an example, that he who incurs a loss in its defense shall find a recompense in its liberality. While there is a cause to lament that occurrences of this nature should have disgraced the name or interpreted the tranquility of any part of our community, or should have diverted to a new application any portion of the public resources, there are not wanting real and substantial consolations for the misfortune. It has demonstrated that our prosperity rests on solid foundations, by furnishing an additional proof that my fellow citizens understand the true principles of government and liberty, that they feel their inseparable union, that notwithstanding all the devices which have been used to sway them from their interest and duty, they are now as ready to maintain the authority of the laws against licentious invasions as they were to defend their rights against usurpation. It has been a spectacle displaying to the highest advantage the value of republican government to behold the most and least wealthy of our citizens standing in the same ranks as private soldiers, preeminently distinguished by being the army of the Constitution, undeterred by a march of 300 miles over rugged mountains, by the approach of an inclement season, or by any other discouragement. Nor ought I to omit to acknowledge the efficacy, the patriotic cooperation which I have experienced from the chief magistrates of the states to which my requisitions have been addressed. To every description indeed of citizens let praise be given, but let them persevere in their affectionate vigilance over that precious depository of American happiness, the Constitution of the United States. Let them cherish it too, for the sake of those who from every clime are daily seeking a dwelling in our land. And when in the calm moments of reflection they shall have retraced the origin and progress of the insurrection, let them determine whether it has not been fomented by combinations of men who, careless of consequences and disregarding the unerring truth that those who rouse cannot always appease a civil convulsion, have disseminated from an ignorance or perversion of facts, suspicions, jealousies, and accusations of the whole government. So those guys are connected to the Ark is what he's saying. He's drawing them out. They're the insurrection as they drive by. They are not connected to me. They're doing it on their own accord. Stay away from me. Yeah. Having thus fulfilled the engagement which I took, get that voice off me, dumbass. As we're pointing out. Excuse me, let me interrupt the address to Congress.
Enemy about to score.
Fish him out. Having thus fulfilled this engagement which I took when I entered into office, to the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, on you, gentlemen, and the people by whom you are deputed, I rely for support. In the arrangements to which the possibility of a similar contingency will naturally draw your attention, it ought not to be forgotten that the militia laws have exhibited such striking defects as could not have been supplied by the zeal of our citizens. Besides the extraordinary expense and waste which are not the least of the defects, every appeal to those laws is attended with a doubt of its success. The devising and establishing of a well-regulated militia would be a genuine source of legislative honor and a perfect title to public gratitude. I therefore entertain a hope that the present session will not pass without carrying to its full energy the power of organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and thus providing in the language of the Constitution for calling them forth to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection, and repel invasions. As auxiliary to the state of our defense, to which Congress can never too frequently recur, they will not omit to inquire whether the fortifications which have been already licensed by law commensurate with our exigencies. The intelligence from the Army under the command of General Wayne is a happy presage to our military operations against the hostile Indians north of Ohio. From the advices which have been forwarded, the advance which he has been made have damned the ardor of the savages and weakened their obstinacy in waging war against the United States. And yet, even at this state hour, when our power to punish them cannot be questioned, we shall not be unwilling to cement a lasting peace upon terms of candor, equity, and good neighborhood. Towards none of the Indian tribes have overtures of friendship been spared. The Creeks in particular are covered from encroachment by the interposition of the general government and that of Georgia. From a desire also to remove the discontents of the Six Nations, a settlement meditated at Presquisle on Lake Erie has been suspended, and an agent is now endeavoring to rectify any misconception into which they may have fallen. But I cannot refrain from again pressing upon your deliberations the plan which I recommended at the last session, for the improvement of harmony with all the Indians within our limits by the fixing and conducting of trading houses upon the principles then expressed. Gentlemen of the House of Representatives, the time which has elapsed since the commencement of our fiscal measures has developed our pecuniary resources, so as to open a way for a definitive plan for the redemption of the public debt. It is believed that the result is such as to encourage Congress to consummate this work without delay. Nothing can more promote the permanent welfare of the nation, and nothing would be more grateful to our constituents. Indeed, whatsoever is unfinished of our system of public credit cannot be benefited by procrastination, and as far as may be practicable, we ought to place the credit on grounds which cannot be disturbed, and to prevent that progressive accumulation of debt which must ultimately endanger all governments. An estimate of the necessary appropriations, including expenditures into which we have been driven by the insurrection, will be submitted to Congress. Gentlemen of the Senate and of the House of Representatives, the Mint of the United States has entered upon the coinage of precious metals, and considerable sums of defective coins and bullion have been lodged with the Director by individuals. There is pleasing prospect that the institution will at no remote day realize the expectation which was originally formed of its utility. In subsequent communications, certain circumstances of our intercourse with foreign nations will be transmitted to Congress. However, it may not be unseasonable to announce that my policy in our foreign transactions has been to cultivate peace with all the world, to observe treaties with pure and absolute faith, to check every deviation from the line of impartiality, to explain what may have been misapprehended, and correct what may have been injurious to any nation, and having thus acquired the right to lose no time in acquiring the ability to insist upon justice being done to ourselves. Let us unite, therefore, in imploring the Supreme Ruler of nations to spread his holy protection over these United States, to turn the machinations of the wicked to the confirming of our Constitution, to enable us at all times to root our internal sedition, and put invasion to flight, to perpetuate to our country that prosperity which his goodness has already conferred, and to verify the anticipations of this government being a safeguard to human rights.
Flag returned.
If you're wanting me to say a few words here, I think he's pointing out the checkpoints that are being made, the human rights, the heartbeat that's going on there, the anticipations. There's no reason that I should be waiting, or anybody should be waiting on that. The hard work that's being going on there. I think I would stand out from that group. Bedford here, as was mentioned, and I've said that over the last couple of days. The radio wave on the outlet has been changed. You're not going to cover it up. You're in debt, as been mentioned. It would be in their best benefit to pay that debt. It comes down to provisions, as far as I'm concerned. Very well spoken. I think at certain points they've pointed out the wording and cluster of words and the repetition there. And I think he's mentioned the majority of these speeches that are being given, they practice the speech before it's given. And that's the eagle, right? I'm the bird. I'm up here winging it, as was pointed out. Aside from the facts that they're giving themselves to move forward with the country, the steps being taken there. I know I get tired of constantly telling you that you're in debt and nothing's being done about it. As I'm pardoned and excused from anything that you have to say. Again, I'm a reasonable person. I'm not utterly trying to destroy you, however. There is a debt owed, it's not being paid. Furthermore, you're harassing me every step of the way. On that note, it's a good spot to move forward. I'll stop this stream. We'll start another one. This is about an hour and a half, 2 hours into this. Yeah. So I hope that was beneficial to members of the House and Congress. To George, as far as the revolution, all the steps that need to be taken, and as we move forward, I think he's mentioned he's already jumped ahead of me as far as reading it, so he knows what's about to happen. So this is for their livelihood.
Enemy captured your flag.
We give credit where credit is due. Don't ever forget that. You do not. You dishonor your father. After that, in God we trust here, which would be me. I will Ecclesiastes chapter 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor, man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. The sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. I commune with mine own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. So over here, we're gonna take a tour of Earth. Over here we have a controller.
That was difficult to go through. That was not fun to do at all.
Things that have not been shown, or things that you cannot see on camera. You're welcome, you jackass. I'll do one more. We'll make a round, actually. Congress here. Question: was it altogether void? Nihilistic view. It must be so, for the Sruti says there was nothing whatsoever here. There was neither cause nor effect. Another reason for this conclusion is the fact of origin. A jar, for instance, is produced. Hence, before its origin, it must have been non-existent. The logician objects, but the cause cannot be non-existent, for we see the lump of clay, for instance, before the jar is produced. What is not perceived may well be non-existent, as is the case with the effect here, but not so with regard to the cause, for it is perceived. Nihilist? No. For before the origin, nothing is perceived. If the non-perception of a thing be the ground of its non-existence, before the origin of the whole universe, neither cause nor effect is perceived. Hence, everything must have been non-existent. Vedantins reply, not so, for the Sruti says it was covered only by death. Had there been absolutely nothing either to cover or to be covered, the Sruti would not have said it was covered by death. For it never happens that a barren woman's son is covered with flowers springing from the sky. Yet the Sruti says it was covered only by death. Therefore, on the authority of the Sruti, we conclude that the cause which covered and the effect which was covered were both existent before the origin of the universe. Inference also points to this conclusion. We can infer the existence of the cause and effect before creation. We observe that a positive effect which is produced takes place only when there is a cause, and does not take place when there is no cause. From this we infer that the cause of the universe too must have existed before creation, as is the case with the cause of a jar, for instance. Excuse me, I have my own thought on this. We can infer the existence of the cause of creation because the positive effect was produced. So everything that's produced, like all the visuals here, cause and effect, everything that's produced is an effect of your surrounding. Objection, the cause of a jar also does not pre-exist. So that jar can be it can be changed, you know what I mean? So each individual has their own chance to produce their own jar. The cause of a jar also does not pre-exist, for the jar is not produced without destroying the lump of clay. And so with other things, I assure you I'm in the future. Here's the date and time right here. Well, I mean, I guess it's different, but retrospect here. March 16th, Sunday at 2025. They don't believe. There's no possible way that he's in the future. You cannot preconceive this. Would you like to bet me on this? I think I've laid it out full detail. Reply, not so, for the clay or other material is the cause. The clay is the cause of the jar and the gold of the necklace, and not the particular lump-like form of the material, for they exist without it. We see the effects such as the jar and the necklace are produced simply when their materials, clay and gold, I'm outside of the earth, are present. Although the lump-like form may be absent, therefore the particular form is not the cause of the jar and the necklace. But when the clay and the gold are absent, the jar and the necklace are not produced, which shows that these materials, clay and gold, are the cause, and not the roundish form. Whenever a cause produces as an effect, it does so by destroying another effect it produced just before. For the same cause cannot produce more than one effect at a time, but the cause by destroying the previous effect does not destroy itself. Therefore the fact that an effect is produced by destroying the previous effect, the lump, for instance, is not a valid reason to disprove that the cause exists before the effect is produced. He's arguing against George. Some of the things that he said against me, it's like he's arguing against. It's like, listen, dude, clay, period. His name is on the earth. Shut up. You're not going to argue against it, period. It is period. That's what he's arguing. A wise man's duties. Where were we at here? Next. Buddhist wisdom verses. 6 faults. So, I have Solomon after this. We're in the 6th Congress here. This is a letter to you from the Bible and all religious texts. As far as take a small break. I don't really want to do that. I want to play. That wasn't fun to do at all.